I wonder if Dan Lanning can win big, close games.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That was exhausting, but very worth it. Yes, it is that time once again for a reaction episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view post Big Ten Championship madness. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, where you can get a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, there was a lot of yelling on my part at that game. Since I wasn't in the press box, I was watching with my guy Liam. Thank you and your dad, Dan, for a great time, because we had a good time and you had a good time. Every Oregon fan had a good time. It was the classic Twitter meme, wasn't it? Boy, am I excited to watch my favorite team play. Middle portion of the meme. Yay, we won. So Nico Reed and Dillon Gabriel are, I don't know, short kings, Oregon legends. You call them whenever you would like. But that was a heck of a football game. There was a lot wrong with it. I'm not talking about that in the first segment. Let's just start with everything good and wonderful about this game for Oregon. Year one, 13-0, Big Ten champions. Oh, that's pretty darn good. Year one, beat Ohio State, beat Michigan, beat Penn State. That is also pretty darn good. Secured a first-round bye in the college football playoff, will not play until New Year's Day, likely in the Rose Bowl. Well, that's pretty good. Oregon's defense didn't come to play, and the offense carried the day. Well, hey, that's pretty good too. So you look across the board and say, boy, there are a lot of good things here. I didn't love every single play the offense ran. 45 points. 45 points. That's a lot of points, everybody. That is a lot. And I mean a lot of points in the football world, especially in the Big Ten. This game did not play out in any way how I expected it to, but a couple of key differences that I highlighted coming into this game were absolutely on display. The most unheralded heroes of the game are the offensive line. As always, Dillon Gabriel sacked, wait for it, one time. One time he was sacked. Abdul Carter is a top 10 pick. How much money did Josh Connerly and Johnny Cornelius just make themselves tonight? One sack in the game, and it wasn't even Abdul Carter, by the way. He did not record a sack. He did not record a TFL in this football game. He had tackled. He is a heck of a football player. To keep him in check like that is remarkable from the Oregon offensive line. But I mean, this is such a statement win for Dan Lanning and company. I heard plenty coming into this season about, can Lanning win a big game? Lanning hasn't won enough big games. Lanning hasn't done that. And I'm sitting here going, guys, he's been a head coach for about an hour and a half. Can we give him at least a full day? Well, now I think he's had a full day. No Ryan Day, pun intended. And he goes out and wins a Big Ten championship. And by the way, I am very impressed with Penn State. Over on Locked On College Football, I've kind of dogged on them this year. That is the team that I saw all season long is not the team that showed up to Lucas Oil Stadium tonight. That is a much improved from the first half of the season and a really good football team. They were good in the trenches. Drew Aller made some ridiculous plays. The running backs and Tyler Warren were exactly as advertised. Of the three keys I had, the first two were slow down Tyler Warren, win the rushing battle. Oregon is outrushed in this game 292 to 183 and wins. You know why? Because they've got the better quarterback. That's what this came down to. Gabriel made the plays, executed when he needed to, runs the ball. What a great play call there at the end of the game to ice it out. Like this was not how I expected the game to play out in any way, shape, or form. The point total in this, that was a voice crack. The point total in this game, I believe, hit the over in the first half. There is no way. My final score prediction was 27-17. These are two of the 10 best defenses in all of college football, and the offenses were cooking. You got to credit the offensive coordinators. You got to credit the offensive lines. You got to credit the quarterbacks, everybody that was involved. There were some phenomenal plays going both ways. And I saw a tweet out there after the SEC championship game where someone, I think it was Brandon Walker or somebody, I'm not sure exactly, but somebody who's, pretty big in the media space, he said, I feel like I just watched the national championship game. Tell me why that wasn't. Tell me why bad offense is better than bad defense or good offense or however you want to frame it. That felt like a really high-level football game. I felt like the two best people on the night were Will Stein, Oregon's offensive coordinator, and Andy Kotelnicki, Penn State's offensive coordinator. Those guys were sharp. They were prepared. They were ready to roll. They were really, really good. And both offensive lines were road pavers. But Oregon found a way to win. It doesn't always look pretty. So I'll talk about the defense later on. But like at a glance here, there's so much for Oregon fans to feel good about in this game. One reason that I have been confident in Oregon since the offseason is, hey, I think they've got the ability to win all sorts of football games. Low-scoring slugfest in Madison, check. Shootout against Penn State, check. Back and forth, throwing a bunch of counterpunches against Ohio State, check. Don't have your best game, playing a really good playoff football team in Boise State, check. Across the board, Oregon's just found ways to win. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. You go out there, you find a way to win the football game. And that's what Oregon keeps on doing. And yeah, you can say, hey, I got a concern over here. I got a concern over there. That's fine. I think that's about, I'm going to get to that in the second segment. But this is absolutely a celebratory, joyous day, a great feeling for Oregon fans, the first conference championship in a full season since 2019. It's crazy because Oregon's been really close. Oregon's been in two of them, but lost the last couple, and they break through here. And it was on the back of that man, Dillon Gabriel, and his timely passing. And Tez Johnson. Tez had 11 for 181 and a touchdown. I mean, come on, man. Come on. I'll go over some of the biggest plays in the third segment on today's show. Second segment is going to be talking about the defensive struggles that were. But this is a great game to win. And I said earlier this week, if Oregon lost the game, not the worst thing in the world. But I'd rather have the extra time off. And yeah, there's not going to be another game at Autzen Stadium in 2024. But you know what? The last one was pretty darn good. And the goal when this season began was never to get a home playoff game. That was Penn State's goal or Notre Dame's goal or a bunch of other teams. And it's a perfectly reasonable goal to have. I'm not taking a shot at these various programs. I'm just saying the goals for Oregon have always gone beyond Autzen Stadium. And once again, without their best game, they've found a way to win. Special teams, real solid. Offense, outstanding. That's a great, not a good, that's a great Penn State defense. And Oregon just went up and down the field at will, scored touchdowns on their first three drives. Like, they did so many things well. And the defense kind of played a stinker, and Oregon won anyway. So I'll talk about that next. Right after, of course, we talk about Mint Mobile. So I love getting a deal as much as the next guy. I'd love to get a deal on some cough syrup right now. But Mint Mobile gives you a deal on your cell phone plan. So they're not making it hard, right? Oregon's defense made it hard to win. Mint Mobile's making it easy to get a deal. $15 a month. You can get wireless with the purchase of a 3-month plan. And it's easy for you too. Not just people like me, but people like you as well. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see that right now all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan, like Oregon's offense, unlimited yards, unscoring, unlimited like they talk about in Wicked, unlimited power, or Palpatine if you prefer. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Forget a second segment sip. My voice needs a second segment waterfall and then rest. But I'm not going to get a lot of that tonight, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Oregon, Big Ten champions. Oregon, 13-0. Oregon, only unbeaten in college football. Oregon, number 1 in all the land. That's not the goal, but it's a step along the way. So, let's talk about that Oregon defense. Ay. This was just puzzling. This was truly puzzling. The adjustments showed up in the second half. Let's start with a positive for the defense. There were adjustments in the second half. Pressure eventually got there. Once. The TFLs didn't get there. But Nico Reed definitely did what he needed to. And all week, I talked about, hey, they can throw to Tyler Warren. They can throw to these running backs. And they did. I mean, Jeff Bossa got cooked by Nick Singleton. Those running backs, as advertised. Tyler Warren, as advertised. Those receivers, also as advertised. Oregon's corners were just better. Dante Manning with a big interception that leads to a touchdown. Nico Reed with the interception that winds up sealing the game. This was not a good game for the defense, but there were good moments, and the adjustments were good. But holy smokes, what in the world was happening on 3rd and 4th and long? I mean, so many things were wrong. The 3rd and 16 was the worst. Yes, I think it was worse than the 4th and 11, which I'll get to. But the 3rd and 16, they go corner blitz and then just don't shade the coverage over and leave a guy wide open. Easiest pitch and catch all night. I think there might have been offensive pass interference in the play. I saw some people talking about it. I have to go back and watch the film to know for sure. But it was just strange, wasn't it? It was strange to watch the Oregon defense be that bad in so many different areas. You can look at individual moments, the interceptions, or a couple of 3rd down stops and say, yeah, they did their job. Yeah, they did great. On the whole, I can't think of an area of Oregon's defense that played well. I cannot. Not consistently. I think the corners were good. And I'm only saying that because they came up with 2 interceptions that led to a game-sealing drive and an easy touchdown for Jordan James. That's the only good thing that you can say about the defense. Corners lived up to the billing. Those Penn State wide receivers, nothing special. Their second leading receiver, he was playing in the game. Didn't matter. Drew Aller had 2 interceptions, and they were both incredibly good. And they were both just great plays. I mean, that play by Nico Reed is so unbelievably good. The ball skills are off the charts on that play. The body position, getting his head around to find the ball, was all good. It was all good. But then you look at so many moments in this game. Penn State, I might be sick reading this stat here in a moment. Oh, well, okay. I thought this was going to be worse. Penn State was 7 of 13 on 3rd down and 2 of 2 on 4th down. They had 518 total yards, 292 rushing. Look, those are great running backs, but we haven't seen Oregon get gashed like that since Boise State. And frankly, I think this was worse than that. The defensive line, let's call a spade, they got manhandled. They got worked. They got pushed around. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't pressure. The eye discipline was nowhere to be found from the linebackers. The DBs couldn't tackle in space. No one could tackle those running backs in space. They're really good. They're really good. But it felt like there was never a tackle in space to be had on those guys until they were 30 yards or so down the field. Like Ross James would probably be one of my individual shout-outs on Monday's show. Pins him inside the 5, and in 4 plays, no passes, Penn State is suddenly at the Oregon 40-yard line. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out what was missing up front. Let's credit the Penn State offensive line. That's all I can come back to. Birch was there. Harmon was there. Caldwell was there. They were all there. All the guys were there. And guess what? They just didn't show up. They got bullied. Penn State is not the only team with a great offensive line. Oregon's going to face another team that can really run the foot. They could end up facing Tennessee in that Rose Bowl game. You know a team that runs the football really well? Tennessee, with a great running back who was hard to tackle. So that was concerning. It was just off-putting. That was not the Oregon defense that I have seen all year. That was not the Oregon defense that has given me confidence Oregon is capable legitimately of winning the national championship this season. It wasn't there. It wasn't on display. And Oregon won the game anyway. And they came through in a big moment. That's the positive. The negative is 292. I'm fairly certain without looking at it, that is the most rushing yards Oregon has allowed in a game this season. I mean, that's inexplicable, quite frankly. I cannot believe, I don't think there is anybody, media, fan, whoever, I didn't come across a single score prediction in which both teams had at least 35 points. I don't think you could have found one. And I don't want to see a YouTube comment below, I had it. You got to show me the proof. Show me the money. Because that is not, you got two top 10 defenses nationally, 45-37. That was just Tosh Lupoi, Dan Lanning, Chris Hampton, back to the drawing board, man. Back to the drawing board. I don't think you need a complete and total reset, but you need to assess what went wrong and figure out how to get that right by the time January 1st rolls around. Now, that was a lot of negative. A lot of negativity for a day where Oregon just completed a 13-0 season for the first time ever, and a Big Ten championship in their first year in the league. They beat each of the three biggest brands in the conference. How about that? That's pretty good. Here's what I'll counter with. I am not punting on the Oregon defense. I do not believe all the players are still there. Oregon got out of this game, from my knowledge, completely healthy. Jamari Caldwell went down in the first half. He was playing in the second. So Oregon's going to be healthy. Oregon is going to be incredibly rested going into their quarterfinal game on New Year's Day, in all likelihood at the Rose Bowl. But what I will counter with is, wait for it, I got to look this up. Georgia, Ohio State, 2022 in the college football playoff semifinal. Georgia, Ohio State. I'm just going to keep saying those teams for a moment just so you can understand. Georgia, Ohio State. Final score, 42-41. Sometimes C.J. Stroud went crazy against that Georgia defense, but they were able to batten down the hatches when they needed to most. Sometimes a great defense or a great offense doesn't have a good day. You know what? Defense and special teams won the day against Wisconsin. Special teams, really good tonight. Offense won the game. The offense won the game. And you know what? That's frankly a good place for Oregon to be. You don't have to have a game look one way. However it's playing out, game script, flow, this plays, working that concept, all these things that play out throughout the course of the game, whatever happens, Oregon's capable of winning. They could come back from trailing because they can score quickly. They could chew out the clock. How about that championship drive they had? That was a championship drive, the last touchdown that Oregon scored in the football game. That was, wait for it, 12 plays, 75 yards, 649. That's give me a championship offense. And they went and delivered it. Absolutely phenomenal stuff there. So, yeah, the defense had a bad day. They were kind of due for one of those with how they've been playing, I guess. I didn't think it'd be coming today. But you know what? Tip of the hat to Penn State. That offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, he's not going to be an offensive coordinator for long. Someone's going to offer him a chance to be a head coach, and he's going to take it. And Drew Aller is a guy who people dog on all the time because he's not the best quarterback in the Big Ten, but he's not the worst. And the NFL scouting community, they haven't punted on him, and you saw why. He showed the arm angles. He showed the accuracy. He showed the ability to make good reads. And then, yeah, he had a couple interceptions. And that's why he's not the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. It's Dillon Gabriel, who ends the game 22 of 32 for 283 yards and 4 touchdowns. Dynamite. Tez, 11 for 181. Bonkers numbers there. But I know this Oregon defense had Oregon fans scratching their heads. Me too. But that's what I went back to. That was an all-time Georgia defense. It was an all-time Georgia team. That was the Georgia team that beat Oregon 49-3. That defense gave up 49 points. When you put an NFL caliber quarterback on the other side, sometimes he's just going to go make a bunch of plays. And Drew Aller made a bunch of plays. But Oregon made the big ones when they needed to. And sometimes that's what it needs to look like. So yes, there are things to fix. But at the end of the day, Oregon won the game and the defense made the stop when they were called upon. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or at Mamp on X, formerly known as Twitter. Interesting. One of you out there is going to understand why I paused at that. Two of you. Kendra's going to get it. So, let's just go through the key moments, shall we? Because there were a lot of fun moments, key moments, important thoughts on how one Daniel Lanning managed that game. Coming up next. Right after we talk about FanDuel, of course, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Oregon, #1 team in all the land. FanDuel, #1 sportsbook in all of the land. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Do you have Oregon -3.5? My score prediction did, and that would have been correct, because Oregon wins by 8. If you had Penn State +3.5, well, that's too bad because you would have lost this one. But if you feel like you know how the NFL's playing out, check them out at FanDuel.com. 115 bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Third segment sip. Necessary. Very. Okay. Few moments in this game that stick out. Kenyon Sadiq. Awesome. That was awesome. Not going to lie. First thought after Oregon marches down the field on a top 4 defense in college football and Sadiq catches it and hurdles the guy, I thought to myself, oh, okay, so Oregon by 40. Oh, okay, cool. We're going to Arizona State this thing. How about Kenny Dillingham, huh? Big 12 champs. That Dan Lanning coaching tree looks pretty good right now. Looks pretty good. So, I mean, it's just, Dillingham. But that's a pretty good start. That hurdle was so baller. It was phenomenally good. And that was a tone setter. I'm not talking about it just because it was cool. But that drive being punctuated like that set the tone for the rest of the game. So that was a pretty big moment. Another one that stood out. I mean, there were several. I'll be honest. I didn't have one in my head right there. I was kind of pinballing around, going like, this one, that one, this one, that one. Okay. Let's talk about the 4th and 11, shall we? That's when the game should have ended. 4th and 11, Oregon's defense has made its adjustments. And, man. I don't know what has not been able to click for safeties in this Dan Lanning, Tosh Lupoi-led defense, but they're just not making a bunch of plays. They did much better in the second half. But go look at that touchdown. I don't know what Kobe Savage is doing. He runs into who was in coverage? It might have been Tysheen, might have been Nico. I don't know. Ball comes kind of right in front of him. He cuts behind the receiver, hits his own guy. Doesn't happen. Now, is that a frustrating play? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a heck of a play by Drew Aller. I've watched Mateo Uyunglele the rest of the season get around the edge, have a guy in his grasp, just barely, and get him to the ground. Against Damon Williams, Washington last week, that was a sack. Against Drew Aller, he stays on his feet. He makes a heck of a throw to the end zone. That was the only place the ball could have gone. It was a ridiculously good throw. So sometimes, tip your cap. Like, Drew, that's a heck of a play, Mr. Aller. That is just a heck of a football play. Should Oregon be able to break that up? Yeah, they should. The other one that stands out is the 3rd and 16. I understand why Tosh went with a corner blitz. They do that a lot when a team is shaded towards the hash mark because a corner can get there quicker. They didn't fill it correctly. Again, there might have been OPI on the play. I think they missed a call. It was either there or somewhere else on a scoring drive for Penn State. I thought the officiating was mostly fine. Oregon got away with an illegal man down the field on Tez Johnson's long touchdown run, and Penn State got away with pass interference on Trayshawn Holden on a drive that led to Oregon, I believe, punting. It was either punting or or a field goal. So, officials they were better than normal. They were better than normal. That was my honest take. Like, Jordan James was having his face mask held time and again. They kept calling it. And kudos to the officials for all of that. But on the 3rd and 16, I get what they're going for. It's just, You shouldn't give the other team, in my view, for whatever you take of my football knowledge, would not give the team an opportunity to exploit a vacancy. And that's what they did. I think you sit in coverage there and say, Drew Allen, you want to check this ball down? You want to run for 5-10 yards, bring up 4th and 10? Be my guest. Be my guest. I thought that was a little aggressive. I think they were trying to put them in a spot where they weren't going to be able to go for it, and they would have had to punt, even though it was late in the game, or it was just going to be such a long 4th down, it would have been impossible to convert. Instead, they get burned for it. So those were a couple of key moments. But there was a play on that final drive in the lead up to that 4th and 11 where Dan Lanning, this is not going to get talked about a lot, especially since Penn State ends up scoring. But again, guy had to make a heck of a play at the end of it. Oregon tried to substitute. Penn State played quickly, and they didn't substitute. Oregon was going to have 12 men on the field. Lanning snuck in the timeout by that much. I mean, by that much. So I thought that would, again, it ended up not mattering because Oregon gives up the 4th and 11 for a touchdown. But I thought that Dan Lanning and the rest of the coaching staff did a really good job. Yes, Will Stein was better than anybody on the defensive side from a coaching standpoint. No arguments there, of course. But the adjustments in the second half showed up. Penn State had 24 points in the first half, and they had 13 in the second, all of which came in the fourth. And they gave up the 1 touchdown. They get the hold on the 2-point conversion, which almost proved to be crucial. And then they get the interception late in the game. I know that the 4th and 11, that's a bad sequence there. But they were that close to allowing just 1 touchdown in the second half. But at the very least, even though it wasn't perfect, the adjustments showed up. And that's what you're looking for from a coaching staff. Are you adjusting on the fly? Are the results there? And they were obviously there. They were obviously there. Then, another moment. I knew it was going to arrive eventually. A money down conversion to Terrence Ferguson. I think it was his only catch outside of the touchdown. No, he had 3 catches on the day. T-Ferg on 4th and 2 when Oregon marches down the field. Right call to go for it. You could have tried a long field goal to try to make it a 2-possession game. I think with the way that offense was playing, I 100% was in agreement with that particular call. And they kept lining up offensively in looks to isolate Terrence Ferguson. And then they'd motion a running back out to join him so he wasn't as alone, depending on, if it's man or zone coverage. But they got a look there. And I think Lanning might have taken a timeout after Penn State showed something because they didn't love the look. And then they come out, they get T-Ferg isolated. He almost dropped it, but he held on. And man, Dillon Gabriel, talk about more. I'll talk about him more on Monday's show. Nails. Absolute nails from that guy. I mean, no interceptions, always made the right play, didn't put it in harm's way, just did so many good things. So many good things. Curious to see what you guys are thinking. Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and go Big Ten champion Ducks.